you staying the whole time or no?
Me? Yeah, no, I'm going to stay though.
Oh, okay. Because I think. Oh,
Because okay, she can see
Okay,
quite an
okay.
empty room.
so I just needed somebody to do the Q&A.
Oh, I
Like
can
just
do that.
go to the mark. I can come back. I just left Riker in there. So okay.
Do all that. That's fine. But
Yep. Okay. Hey, we were just wondering if everybody could move like towards the middle. Otherwise, she can't see. Sorry. Yeah, we're just gonna shift to here. There. Now she'll be able to see you.
Yeah. Parker. I talked to your dad today.
empowering relationships.
I talked to your dad today. Oh, I remember the interview video on Zoom.
I know.
You were so impressed.
You were great.
No, you were the one who was great.
You're WSS ambassador.
Okay. Are you introducing them or no?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that then.
Thank you. Okay, so are you happy to stand up and talk? Well, Willa's going to be. Okay. Can I encourage you to sit this way? Only because Willa, the other speaker, she can only see the centre of the room, and if it looks like it's all empty chairs, she might get a bit freaked out.
Okay, I didn't want to sit on top of the.
No, and this is all my stuff, so you can ignore me. Hey, there's Willa.
I'll tell you, the other presentation was very popular.
Is this okay? Are we ready to start? So, before I introduce our panelists, I want to introduce myself. My name is Annabel, and I'm a shopaholic. And I have been shopping while I've been in the States. And one of the things I saw was a beautiful, now I say the word vase, you I think will say vase, in Target. But could I take it back to the UK with me? It was a gorgeous vase. It was the best shape, the best size. It was beautiful. And it appeared strong. So I picked it up. Can I wrap it? Can I take it in my suitcase? You probably know where I'm going with this. But it could also chip really easily. It could also shatter completely in an instant, like our warrior siblings, like our glass children. You guys, Willa, I can see you on the screen, are self-sufficient. You're responsible. You're helpful. You are mature beyond your years. And there are so many positive descriptors that go for our glass children. But you may also struggle. You may struggle with being perfectionists. You may be people pleasers. And you may have spent years minimizing your own needs and finding it hard to reach out when you need support. And there are lots of big feelings involved. So we've got here Lexi, who's here in person. We have Willa on the screen, whose flight was cancelled due to this marvelous weather we're enjoying. And they are both going to speak about their experiences and about what they want you as parents to know. So let me hand over to Lexi first.
So hi, I'm Lexi. I'm a sister of a WSS warrior. Her name is Tori. She's not here with us right now because of, we don't want to stress her out too much of coming all the way here in the snowstorm and everything. So she's at home. I am 29 years, well, she's 29 years old and I'm 28 years old. And we only had her diagnosed just recently at 26 years old. So we had 26 years of having no clue what was going on with her. And so growing up, we had no clue. So the whole time, you know, you never really know what's going on with your sibling, just that something's different about her, and just living with something's different and how your life is different from everybody else's around you. But it never felt that crazy because that was what was normal for me growing up, having a sister like that and living in a single parent household with just my mom and I. So I never knew any better. And my mom had been through so much just raising us and not knowing what my sister had, and none of our family knew. So growing up, we just kind of gave up trying really to find out what was going on because they did not know back then. It was only recently when I started going to college and discovering about the advances in genetics and everything, and thought, you know, we should really try again. They've made some advances in the last 20 years that they should know something more by now. And within, I don't even know, like 3 months of trying again, we had a diagnosis. And that was just groundbreaking. I think we cried for, 2 months straight, just knowing that, and being able to find out what other people knew and understood was amazing. And finding other family members with the same things that we did. So that was really amazing. Because we didn't know what she had for the longest time, we really leaned heavily on the Special Olympics community. So just doing sports and involved in people with many other kinds of disabilities and their families is what really kept us together.
That's great. Willa, are you ready to talk?
Yes, I'd love to. Hi, I'm Willa. My little brother Nico was diagnosed with WSS when he was 11. It was in 2015, and it was so new. My parents been trying to find a diagnosis for a while, but I was, oh, sorry, he was 8, I was 11, so sorry about that. So he was quite young. I was also quite young when he was diagnosed. And I had a much more hands-off approach. I knew that my brother had a disability, that I loved him, but at that age, we didn't really know what was going on. And so in the first years, having the WSS community and having something that we could fall back on, find people that were similar to us was so helpful and amazing. And I've met some really cool people through this, and he's made lifelong friends through the community, which is genuinely all we could ask for. It means so much. And growing up, I've always had a lot of emotions when it comes to the diagnosis because I know he's different and I love him so much. But there's always some emotion of like, wow, he's different and I won't be able to have maybe the relationship I want to with him sometimes. But it's so special to still have him and have this community. And yeah, it's just lovely.
I think I've turned it back on. Yeah, I'm coming up to join here because my daughter, Kate, who is friends with Willa, didn't want to come. She didn't feel that it was her, it was going to do her any good to come. So she's put some things in writing, and I just want to read what she's written and then ask you to comment on whether these are things you recognise. And then we might talk a bit about what parents could do better, perhaps. So Kate says this, there's a real emotional weight and complexity. Having a sibling with special needs comes with a range of emotions, from pride in their progress to moments of frustration or worry. It's a lot to carry, and sometimes it feels there's no easy way to put those feelings into words. I have difficulty expressing my feelings. It can be tough to share the more complicated or negative feelings with others. You know it's not your sibling's fault, so it feels wrong to be angry or blame them. I feel isolated when others don't understand, when people don't really understand what it's like or the challenges that come with having a sibling with special needs. it's hard to truly relate to people who haven't been there. Kate's also neurodivergent herself, and she says it can feel like your needs don't matter as much, or that her struggles aren't as hard, especially when the support seems to focus more on your siblings' needs. Well, that was tough reading for me. I cried when I first read it. Are these feelings that you two relate to?
Yeah, I definitely struggled with that when I was younger, thinking that, no matter what I did, it was always more of a problem of what she was doing. So, more focus on that. But as I got older, I learned, it's not really a comparison. We all have our own features back and forth of, what's important. And I feel like my mom did a really good job of providing more moments of like focused attention. So she always made it a point, like every year we would have a one-on-one trip with just us where we would do something together and we would talk about things. And I think that really helped to show that we both get, attention that we need to grow up. I think that's important.
1 week of camp, Willa. That was all Lexi gets when Tori is off for 1 week. What about you? Do you get one-on-one time?
Yeah, my parents have been and always have been so, so good about also prioritizing my needs. But I've always been aware that it's very hard to consistently prioritize both me and my brother. And they've done such an amazing job, but there will always be moments where I felt like maybe my needs weren't considered because I might be of need. I might need help in a moment, but Nico might also need help. And he does seem to take priority a lot, which as much as I understand that, it's always going to hurt. It's always going to feel like, oh, I wish I could be heard more. And it's always just going to be a little like internal fight between what I want and need and what I know my brother wants and needs. And and as I grew up and as I've aged more, I've learned that it's never really been a fight between me and my brother as it seemed when I was younger for attention. I know what I need, and I can now go up to my parents and say, hey, I'm in need of this right now. I know Nico needs this, but I need you too. And the ability to say that and the ability to express my needs now has just been amazing. And knowing that I'm heard is so, so important. And I love being at a point now where I can say, hey, I need you, please help.
So you two are quite grown up now, making your own way in the world. How can we as parents help the younger siblings find the way to express their needs? Because yes, your mum did your one-on-one trips for 1 week a year, but what on a more regular basis could parents do you think?
That's a hard question because it's been so long, and I feel like growing up has made everything seem so much, smaller and far away than it was back then. It was hard to communicate what you really wanted. And in our situation, just having one parent, one sibling, and then one WSS sibling is especially hard to find that time to communicate one-on-one. And I don't really have an answer.
Willa, do you have any suggestions?
Yes. I think my biggest suggestion is just to listen and let your child feel and never, my emotions at times were very irrational. But I think having a space to express those irrational, just anger and sadness. And honestly, sometimes it wasn't irrational. Sometimes I was very angry and very sad. And to give your child a safe place to express that and to listen and understand their pain, I think is the most important thing you can do, and is going to be the most helpful thing you can do for them as well.
And when I was doing some of my research for this session, I found that there's advice about things that parents are being unhelpful by saying to siblings, and I am very guilty of this, subtly reinforcing that Kate's worth is more in her pleasing me or helping me. And simple things like saying, "You're so helpful. I don't have to worry about you. You're amazing. You've got this. You're always so considerate." And I now know that that probably wasn't the most helpful reinforcements I could give. She's an eldest daughter as well. And culturally, where we come from, elder daughters are considered the helpful ones, the responsible ones, the caregiving ones. You've both made career decisions leading you into care professions. Do you think having a sibling with additional needs has helped you, has led you to make that decision?
100%. Growing up with someone who is different than every other person in society has made me realize that there's so many boundaries every day between what she can do and what everybody else can do, and how there's so many other options to better address those. I mean, my sister had a lot of behavioral problems when she was younger. She has mellowed out as she's gotten older, but it was terrible. I mean, we've had CPS called on us because she was having a fit in a parking lot before, multiple times. So just having that and understanding that people have different views of what's going on in their family that is not understood by the majority is something that I think really needs to be seen in the healthcare field and understood. So it's made me have a different perspective of thinking there are backgrounds to why people do things and how people live that needs to be told.
Yeah. Willa?
I would say yes, like definitely. But I'm going more into like psychology, and I chose that path because of I remember how I felt and like how alone and afraid I sometimes felt. I want to go into this field more to help other siblings, because yes, our siblings do need the support, and I'm so happy that people are giving them this support. But I do feel like the siblings are sometimes not supported as much, and so that drew me more towards the field, because I think having a place, like I said, where you can listen, where your thoughts can be put into words and everything like sorted out, is so great. And so yeah, I would say it definitely led me to that field, like straight towards it. And I'm so happy to be in it because I have a sibling like Nico.
And other feelings that we haven't talked about yet. Kate talks about being embarrassed a lot, particularly if Alex is having a meltdown in public or is being very demanding and behaving in a way that attracts attention. You mentioned having CPS being called out. Have you had incidents like that?
Yeah, when she was younger and would have tantrums all the time, one of her favorite things was to get completely naked and run around. So we would have naked Tori in a store, naked Tori down the street, just everywhere. And so that can be pretty embarrassing, but luckily she doesn't have a lot of like secondary sex characteristics. So it's just kind of naked child running around. So you feel a lot of embarrassment there. And then also, one of the things I very rarely ever did was invite people over to my house as a kid. That was something that I never did. I was embarrassed. I didn't know how she would react when I had other people over. So that's something I still think back on, is not inviting people over at all. Still haven't done that recently.
Willa?
I would, yeah, definitely. I felt that a lot over the years. And you talked about not inviting people over. And I had like a little core group of friends that I would sometimes invite over. And I remember just feeling so embarrassed when he would have a fit in front of them and feeling like, oh, I have to protect my friends. Like they can't see that side of me. They can't see that side of my family. And there would just be this doubt of like, oh, what if they unfriend me? What if they don't like me because of this? And that all stemmed from the embarrassment I felt seeing my brother throw a fit in front of people who had no idea what was going on. And sometimes he would do that in public, at home, but it was always, I just felt so much more embarrassed in front of the people that I loved so much more. It's gotten better now. They know him. But definitely there has always been that little bit of like, oh, the embarrassment to it.
I think we're going to see if we've got questions now. Are you prepared to take some questions? Okay, I've got 2 microphones because Willa can only hear when we speak into a microphone. So I'm going to give Lexi one. Didn't want to break it. Has anyone got questions or observations or anything they'd like to talk to Lexi and Willa about, as we have this incredible opportunity to actually ask questions to 2 incredible young women who are very honest. All right. Oh, I've got 2 hands. Let me go here first.
Hello, thank you for joining us. It's been really valuable. Sometimes I worry about our future when me and my husband aren't around anymore. Is that something as siblings you think about or have planned for or discussed with your families about your role in your siblings' future?
Oh, careful. Yes, that is something I've thought about pretty extensively, as I'm like pretty much the only family in our small family. they've had like sibling conferences where it's siblings with the special needs. And we went to there and they talked about how really the sibling is going to be the one with the special needs their entire life. Because as much as you want to, the parent's not going to be around forever and it's going to be with your sibling. So there's a lot of differing opinions on whether the sibling wants to be the supremely like responsible one in their life, or if they want to be, more distant. And I think that's a conversation you need to have with the sibling on how much responsibility do you want? Do you want to be like solely responsible for them, or do you want to be in more of a distant position where you can still visit and talk to them but just not have complete responsibility for them? And I think planning ahead is really important for that. I know I had a lot of stress when my sister was still living with my mom, which she was until pretty recently, and was still having behaviors, and it was just my mom and her. So I really worried about that. And just recently she moved into a group home, so a home with other special needs people. And that has given me so much relief to know that there is a stable place for her, so that even if something happens to my mom, she still has something and there's support there. And she has a caseworker that I know that when that time comes, I am able to step up in a position that I would feel comfortable in as guardian. And so I think planning ahead and talking, I'm sorry.
Don't worry.
And talking to the sibling is the most important part.
Yeah. What about you, Willa? Is this something you think about, have talked about?
A little bit. My parents have taken on, like, they are the main guardians of him right now. And I have not fully thought of it yet. If I'm going to be completely honest, I'm aware that it will fall into my hands as I get older, but it's something that I'm honestly very scared of. It's something that I worry that I won't be able to do correctly, that I won't be able to give him the care he needs. But to hear that other siblings are doing well in group homes and to hear about success stories helps so much. Because if I'm going to be honest, it's the thing that scares me the most, knowing that it will be on me one day. But it's not something that I think about quite yet. And when I do, I'm with my parents and I can talk to them and say, hey, what is the plan? What are we going to do? But it does scare me quite a bit, but I know that when the time comes where I can help him, I will be able to, especially with all the support we have now. Yeah.
I know you can't see the room, Willa, but it's getting emotional in here. All right, I saw her question over. I'm going to go to Gillian first with my roving microphone.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to tell you guys, thank you so much for being here and talking. I have a 17-year-old daughter, and much of what you've said has been something that I'm pretty sure she's feeling, but doesn't have the words or the wherewithal right now to describe what she's going through. So it was really helpful to hear from your perspective all the things that I can be doing, or all the ways that we can be supporting her better. So thank you so much for being here and talking about that, because as parents, we're so much, we're worried about the siblings too. And yeah, we care so much. And my heart is with her too about this. So thank you for being here.
It's lovely. Perry, did you have a?
Sort of was thinking a little bit along the lines of what Jillian just shared, but I just so I have twins that are 28, and then I have a son who's 25, and my husband and I just turned 60. So, and we have Annabel, and she's 13. So I guess my question is, well, my initial comment is, my children, especially my 25-year-old, has just witnessed a lot of trauma. I mean, like, he was with us all during COVID, and he came home from college and was with us. And then just them, like, two of my kids have gotten married, and it's not so much that they are concerned about Annabeth, but they're just super impacted by how it's affected me, and just almost like a codependent relationship with, like, feeling sad for me. And so all my kids have been in and out of therapy because of this, but they're all like super compassionate. And my youngest son, 25, is really struggling. So I guess my question is, like, it's just really easy for me to, like, want to share with them, oh, this happened and that happened, and, like, I must confide in them. And I'm learning the best thing I can do is to take care of myself so that my children don't have to take care of me. So have you found anything helpful? Like, have you found going to, like, a therapy type situation? So my son is for sure PTSD. He's seen, like, a lot of physical altercations and has intervened and tried to help. Any suggestions of, like, what you've done, or even just, like, mindset shifts that have helped you in that situation?
Thanks. Lexi?
Yes, so we've had a lot of instances of that, especially when she was, very physically active when she was younger, very combative, I would say. So there probably is trauma there that I haven't really addressed. I have gone to therapy before about more of the emotional, like, having attention kind of things, but not really a lot on how physically that may have impacted me. I do know that in the past, before my sister moved out, I was concerned probably constantly about her effects on my mom. I think my greatest worry was, is she able to like, deal with the physicalness of that? And so yeah. So I actually think I felt better when I knew more, but then also there's a delicate balance of not bringing the sibling in when like it's at its worst, but they still want to know that you're safe and that you're okay. And they worry about you, even if you're not telling them things, they still worry about you. So I think honesty is really important there and telling them what's going on with you. And then also, I've tried to encourage my mom to seek out help in other ways, to get an aid, to, do other activities outside of just her and my sister, closely bonded together, and find other outlets that, help her bring her back to, herself and have more things outside of just my sister. So.
And what about you, Willa?
I think that it's had it has a huge effect on both me and my parents growing up. Me growing up, my parents parenting him. There's been a lot of fighting, altercations, stuff like that. And I think the number one thing that has always helped me was finding someone to talk to, whether it be going through therapy, being with my best friend. Sorry.
You don't
Always
need
having
to apologize.
an outlet for that was like very much the number one most helpful thing. And then finding things outside as well that I could do with maybe just my parents or with my friends to just get away, because sometimes genuinely just a distraction was the only thing you needed. And it was what was going to help you get through that moment if it was as especially hard one. But I think having a consistent resource that you can go to just talk, and someone, they don't have to understand what you're going through, but just to have someone who will listen has always been the most important thing for me. And I think it's been very important for my parents as well to have someone who will listen and to talk with them as well openly about how we're all struggling. Being able to sit down sometimes with my mom and have less of a mother-daughter moment, but more of just two people going through a very similar thing together. Moments like that are incredibly helpful. And we're not going through the same thing. We're in the same situation, but two very different parts of the situation. But just being able to sit and talk about both of our emotions about it is so important, and has been, and I think will always be the number one thing that helps me through this and also helps my parents through it.
That's lovely. I think there was got a couple questions on the other side of the room. I cover my roving microphone. Let me come to Dr. Elphick here.
Hi everyone, yeah, I'm Camilla. I'm actually Annabel's school friend, and Alex, her son, is my godson and my nephew. And I'm a lecturer at university in England. I'm in psychology, and I actually am very sad not to meet Willa today, because I was hoping to talk to you a little bit about that, but maybe you can get in touch some other time. Before I start, I just wanted to say I am so impressed by how articulate you've both been. I'm feeling quite choked up myself, so thank you so much. But actually, talking about articulation, I was feeling earlier something you said about having the space to be able to communicate your feelings to your parents. But I think for you two, you're articulate, you're older, but for the younger children in particular, it's really difficult for them to be able to pinpoint their feelings or be able to communicate how they feel. So I'm wondering if anyone's got any thoughts here about the idea of having a space where you don't need to actually actively communicate something, but the fact that you have complex feelings is enough. I don't know if any parents have got any feelings like that their child is emotionally overwhelmed, but they can't communicate it. Sorry, I don't know if you've got any thoughts about that as well. Sorry, both of you, you probably want to lead on that.
How did you cope or didn't you cope when you were younger? Should we go to Willa first this time?
When I was younger, it, to be frank, I didn't cope. I didn't know what my emotions were. And now I understand it a lot more after like years of sitting with them and thinking and talking things through. And also going into psychology has helped me pinpoint a lot more of my own emotions. But when I was younger, I did not cope. I was scared. I felt alone. And I don't, I wish I had something profound to say, like, oh, I know exactly how you can help them, how I wish I had been helped, but I don't really know how to help put those emotions into
I'm just
thoughts.
going to jump in here. I feel like I miscommunicated a bit. I kind of feel that in some ways it places the burden on the sibling to be able to communicate. And actually you've got enough burden already. I think that's all I wanted to say, really. But do you have any thoughts as well?
No, I would just say as well, I don't think I was coping. I read a lot as a child. I would read way too many books than I probably should have been reading. And while I was reading, I can't hear anything. There's nothing going on outside of just what I'm reading. So not the healthiest technique there, but we didn't have a lot of information on what you can do to better communicate.
I think perhaps activities that you could be taken to away from the situation at home, maybe. Yeah. Heather had a question over here.
Hello, and thank you, ladies, for everything today. My middle son is 8. He is our Wiedemann-Steiner warrior. This is his big brother, Gavin. He is 10, and he also has a little brother who's 4. So my question is, at what age do you feel like you actually understood that your sibling was different? And what did your parents do to help you understand their difference between a typical child and a Wiedemann-Steiner child?
Growing up, you just think that that's normal. The whole time you're like, oh yeah, everybody has this. And then I think it wasn't until, elementary school, middle school, when I started really going over to other people's houses and realizing, oh, they can do other stuff at home and they can do other stuff out in the community and, have more time and do stuff like that. So I started realizing it's different when comparing myself to others. And I think that can actually be more negative effect than you would want. So I think it's better to approach it earlier in a more positive light of, we're so happy to have a sibling who is so loving at times. That's, one of my favorite qualities of warriors is that they're so loving and happy that I feel blessed actually to have her as my sister because she is so loving and affectionate at times and so unique that it makes me happy. So I think approaching it younger and really explaining that, yes, she is different in some ways, but she's still your sibling at the end of the day.
Yeah. What about you, Willa?
I would say I'm not really sure exactly what age I became aware that he was different. I always knew that he was different, but when I started like maybe 8th grade, 9th grade is when it really started to seem like, wow, he's different and we love him, but he's different. And that definitely, I still have a bit of a struggle internally with seeing my other friends and their siblings, how close they are. And as a child, that's really all I wanted. And around the ages of like maybe 16, 17, I just started to try and accept that, okay, I might not ever have that relationship with them, but this is what I have. And I love him. And like you said, he can be so insanely sweet sometimes. Like you're looking at him and you're like, wow, I didn't even know someone like had like this much just like love in them. And sadly, sometimes it seems like those moments are few and far between. but hanging on to those moments is so important. And I'm not really sure where I was going with that, but it's very special moments. But I would say, yeah, middle school, early high school is when things started to change, and we kind of had to adapt as a family a lot more. But sometimes it feels awful and you feel like everything is coming undone around you. But I can say that that has changed a lot as I have grown up. And since I'm now 20, and since 13, so many things have changed. And it's emotionally, I think it's changed for the better almost, because we're all able to cope with it a lot better and to rely on each other. And I think it's only getting better, I think. Sorry if that was a bit rambling, but
It's really positive to hear that even if there are struggles in the younger years, there really is hope when people get that bit older. And we've definitely learning about communication.
Yeah.
Anyone else with questions or observations? Oh, we have a sibling question.
As a sibling, how can I mentally help my little brother and like my 4-year-old? How can we help my little brother, like, his feelings be normal to other kids? Like, how can I mentally help him?
Yeah,
Anyways.
I have always made it a point to treat her as my sibling. We are not parent and child, even though I sometimes joke about that and other people joke about that. I've always made a point. No, I'm her sister. So when she pretends that she doesn't know how to buckle a seatbelt anymore, I'm always like, no, she can buckle a seatbelt. She can put on her coat. So actually, I'm the hardest one on her. I don't take her little puppy dog eyes when she's like, oh, I don't know how to do this. And I'm like, no, you know how to do this. So we're the best sibling relationship ever. I love her. And just last week, I pretty much dared her to eat a baby octopus. And she looked me right in the eyes and she ate it and then smirked at me. So just treat them as your sibling, as you would any other sibling. And they don't even know what normal is, treat them as a sibling.
Willa, do you have any comment on that?
yeah, I first kind of want to say that it's not your responsibility always. I don't want you to ever feel like it's that responsibility falls on you, but you definitely can help them, and it's always good to help people. But like Lexi said, just treating them like a sibling, and your other siblings as well, giving them space, and being together, time together, always being there for each other, not treating them too differently, because sometimes you do need to treat them a little differently, but definitely don't. Like my brother and I sometimes like Lexi said, he will try to tie his shoes. He doesn't want to, so he sits down, doesn't tie his shoes, and you just stare at him like, dude, you can tie your shoes. Tie your shoes. And you don't give him that space to kind of muck around and just do what he wants. You gotta say it like it is. Tell him, like, I'm not gonna help you with that. No, you can do that. I've seen you tie your shoes. But I think joking about it and trying, as serious as it is sometimes, trying to find the light and the laughter in it all will definitely be so helpful for both you and your siblings, always.
Lovely. Does anyone else? Oh, we have a question from Bink in the front row here. I don't know where this will be going, Lexi and Willa, but.
So how can I help my siblings when I'm having a rough time with family? Like, how can I help that out, Willa?
Thank you, Bink.
No problem, my friend.
When you're having a rough time, and I know it's sometimes really hard to understand why you're having a rough time, because just so many emotions, so many things are happening. But if you can just say, Mom, Dad, sibling, I'm having a really, really rough time and I'm mad and I'm angry. I'm going to go over here. Don't talk to me. I'm really mad right now. If you can just say, like, this is what's happening, don't talk to me. Don't look at me. I'm going to be mad, is so helpful. Just to let them know that, like, what's going on. You're, even if you don't know what's going on, just to try to say, like, what's happening is always great. And then afterwards, when you're feeling a little bit better, to go to them and say, I love you. I'm sorry if I felt this way, but I love you so much, is always so nice to hear.
Thank you, Willa, my friend.
Of course, Pink.
Hey, Willa, I'll come see you very soon, I hope.
I hope so too. We haven't seen you
Yeah.
in a while.
Like, how long has it been? Like a year and a half, maybe?
Probably a while.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have questions? Oh, we've got one more. Oh, hold on. We'll get back to you, Alva.
I just wondered if you could speak, and let me see if I can phrase this right. What advice you have for parents? What can we do when our warriors are causing you embarrassment and resentment and all the hard? Like, what advice do you have for parents?
I think especially when you're young, just explaining to the sibling that, they're having emotions that they can't communicate. Just like when you're feeling something and you can't say what you're feeling, that this is their way of saying that. And, they don't have, I don't know if they understand, impulse control, but like they don't have that to keep it in themselves. So they have to get it out another way. So I think just like explaining what's going on with your sibling is helpful because, sometimes when you're young, you don't really understand why your sibling is doing that. So like maybe explaining or like possible theories, like maybe it's too loud here or, maybe it's too crowded and that's what caused this, but your sibling can't say that. So this is how they're communicating to us and just another form of communication.
Willa?
I would say my biggest form of advice, especially if there's a public meltdown or something's happening in public, is especially when we're younger, let us walk away. Because sometimes I know that when I was younger, I had no way to process what was happening, especially when I guess you're like first going into high school, going to junior high, everything feels embarrassing, even like the tiniest thing. And giving us the space to just say like, hey, Mom, Dad, I need to walk away for a second is so important. And I think giving both, like your WSS warrior and your other children the space to express themselves is very important. To say like, hey, there's a meltdown happening. Let's see if we can channel this somewhere else, which so much easier said than done. But for both of us, giving us that time and place to just a moment to understand what's going on. Because especially when I was younger, it was always just embarrassing. I didn't want to make my parents feel bad because I was embarrassed. But to give that space where you can say to your kid, I know this is embarrassing. Like, I know, I'm so sorry, but we can get through this. You can go walk away if you need, or you can stay here with me. To give them the option to stay or help themselves, I think is the most helpful.
All right, we've got another question over here.
I just want to make a comment that when my older children graduated from high school, it was really challenging for my daughter to sit through the graduation ceremony. And we kind of learned a lot through, like senior nights and for different sports and graduations. So that as they got older, we kind of learned from those times that those celebrations are for them, for their siblings. And so like when my son Andrew got married and my daughter Grace got married, we wanted to make it whatever they wanted. And so we we, in some senses, I don't want to say excluded our warrior, but we got childcare for them, and they were not a part of some of those celebrations. And in that way, we were able to really love our children and their like most amazing special days of their life.
I think that's fine. We did that for my graduation, and when I wanted her to be included, we would go out for something small, afterward, because again, she doesn't quite understand. So we go out to eat ice cream. This is celebration of graduation. That's good enough for her. And you're still having a memory of celebrating that. I think that's fine.
Right, we have another question.
I have a question, maybe on a smaller level, but Sloane's my warrior here. She has an older sister and a younger sister. And sometimes like dinner's tough. We have small, rough moments. And her younger sister is like her father, very sarcastic, very snarky, very teenagery right now. And like sometimes I'll say, Sloane doesn't get that joke. Like that's not her sense of humor. Like there might be. So I'm wondering for you guys, did it help learning about Wiedemann-Steiner? Like it's hard to explain, well, there's this language issue or there's anxiety. Like that's maybe not appropriate for a 14-year-old to learn about. And I don't want to dim her light, even though I don't think sarcasm is a light, but like her personality shouldn't have to bend either. But it is sort of a daily rub, maybe not, is the big moments that you're talking about. But I'm wondering, did it help you learn about WSS? Would it be more helpful from a third party than a parent teaching you about like what would help for those small, like understanding the aspects of why someone misses the joke, why someone that's not a good approach, or why that makes someone feel worse, or those little things.
Yeah, I think in my case, since we learned so late, I didn't have, a diagnosis or know what to go off on. And so I went more off of characteristics, mentally. She likes cartoons and kids shows. And so, treat her more like a kid and use your words in more of a kid vocabulary, but still at the dinner table, we'll be having, adult conversations, but then we still try to include her with, like little snippets. Like we'll be talking like, I don't even have an example, but something, something, something. And then, hey, Tori, what did you have for lunch today? Something like that. And just bringing them into the conversation, even if it's not at the same level as everybody else, but still including them.
I wanted to say that, especially with the dinner thing, weirdly, that was always a really rough time. He hated sitting down for dinners. That was always where little arguments happened and such, but dinner was always so hard for some reason. But I think for me personally, learning as much as I could about it was so helpful for understanding why he was the way he was. And recently I had a really interesting experience in one of my classes where we were learning about rare disorders, and my brother's face popped up in the middle of my class, which was crazy. But for me, helping to understand him and why he has mood swings, what he likes and doesn't like, was just going online and starting with the WSS homepage and branching out, going to research pages, going to blog posts, maybe just reading about what other people had experienced, what I should think about my brother, what I should understand about him. And it's helped a lot to just educate myself as much as possible about his brain. And it's helped me deal with him a lot as well. Because at the dinner table, we'd be talking and he'd interrupt with something that he really wanted to say, maybe about the Dodgers or the Seattle Seahawks. He's really into sports. And in the moment, you're so mad. You're just like, why did you interrupt? I was telling you about my super cool and fun day. You don't even want to hear it. But that's not what's going through his head. And to talk and to understand that what he does is he usually doesn't mean it maliciously was very important. So I think to help her would just be to let her learn as much as she can about it, because it will help her, or at least it helped me understand him so much better.
Thank you. That was I'm back. That was lovely. We've probably got time for one more question if anyone has anything burning they want to ask. Otherwise, I just really want to say to Lexi and Willa, Willa can't see the whole room. And there's masses of people over to this side that you can't see. Probably a good thing. This has been a much anticipated session for this conference. It's clearly been very emotional for a lot of people in here. Parents, siblings. You will have missed Willa, Alex having complete tears. I like to think it's because he feels guilty and that he misses Kate, but I suspect it's something completely different. And I just want to say to both of you, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experiences and giving us some advice and some hope. So thank you all very much. And that's off. We do have a break